Everyone on Twitter or wherever else you might be watching this, whether it's live or recorded. I am so excited to have our guest today, Tammy Triolo. If you're on LinkedIn, you probably know Tammy. At some point, you have been scrolling through and saw some comment that made you think. It might have made you think. It made you angry, made you like confused, made you like passionate, like whatever it is. Um, Tammy really says these things that sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree, but she puts it out there and moves the conversation forward. So I'm so excited to have her here today. Tammy is the CEO and founder of PCQ Consulting. Her firm is committed to improving company culture and diversity in a sustainable way. Tammy has over 15 years of professional experience and has worked in the healthcare space for over 15 years, where before launching PCQ Consulting, she was an executive for a pharmaceutical company. Tammy's passion is people. She's dedicated to helping them thrive, not just survive in the workplace. Tammy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, David. I am happy to be here with you and shake up some things. Let's hope.
Yeah. All right. And if you are watching us right now live, definitely say hi, comment, send us your questions. We want to hear from you. That's why we do these things live. If you're watching the replay, we still want you to comment and ask questions, and we will monitor those afterwards. But Tammy, so I warned you that we start these things off with the 6 and 60. So 60 seconds to answer 6 questions, rapid fire style. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. 6 in 60 with Tammy Triolo. Tammy, what is one thing that you would like to see stick around after this pandemic? Oh, Tammy
Oh,
froze
I
up.
think you're frozen, David.
Hey, okay. Are
Yeah,
you?
I heard. What is the one thing I would like to? You maybe.
Yeah, one thing you'd like to see remain after this pandemic, and we're going to start your countdown over.
Ooh, I would like to see working from home as an option after this pandemic.
Nice. On your website, pcqconsulting.com, plug, you say that your currency is kindness. In 5 words or less, what does kindness mean to you?
Kindness means actionable behaviors that back up the words that you say. So you're not just saying something without action behind it.
Nice. And you never follow rules. That was like 15 words, but that's perfect. And when you're feeling overwhelmed or burned out, what do you do to reset and recharge?
I take a nap.
Could you share one notable trait of your favorite boss of all time?
She was loudmouth.
Oh, I like that. What is the favorite book you've ever read, or most consequential?
Slammed by Colleen Hoover.
Oh, I'll have to look that one up. And finally, what is the meaning of life in 5 words or less?
God, family, friends, food, and love.
That's awesome, and I love that you included food in there. That was great. Perfect. So, I think if there wasn't like a little bit of a delay, like I think that you would have totally gotten that in 60 seconds.
I would have killed that for sure.
Exactly. So, Shay, hi, how's it going? We've got a couple people here. Ariel,
Hi.
Cheryl, hey, how's it going? And Erica. So, a lot of people wanted to be here for this conversation because I think, as one person put it in the comments before we went live, they said diversity and candid in the same sentence, I'm there for that. So I'm paraphrasing what they said, but really there is this notion that we don't talk honestly enough about this. And I want to get into that. But first, I want to understand how you came to this point, because you came up through pharmaceuticals, and now you're doing this and adding so much content, consulting, helping people work through their diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. Could you tell us, where did you come from? Like, what did your path look like?
Where did I come from? So when I first started in healthcare, I started in nurse staffing, and we were literally staffing diverse nurses. So we were recruiting nurses from the Philippines, and we were recruiting them from India. And we were placing them in majority white hospitals and majority white areas. And when cultural issues would come up, diversity issues would come up, I would be the person that would go in and resolve some of those issues just through some cultural training, some cultural understanding of our nurses, how they spoke, what they ate, why they ate. One or two of them were Muslims, the way they prayed, why, when they needed to pray, why they needed to pray. So I was constantly involved in the cultural aspect of nurses. And so I was doing diversity, and I didn't realize I was doing diversity.
Mm. It just diversity, I found, is everything. I was giving a talk on building a kinder kind of workplace, and it's about culture, etc. And somebody came up and said, "I want you to come give a diversity talk." And I said, "What? Well, I don't really talk on diversity." And they said, "This was a diversity talk." And I think it's hard to separate when you're talking about culture, like workplace culture nowadays. Everything is diverse. If you're not looking at diversity as a huge piece of that, then you're missing the point. You're missing your people. How are you going to make anybody feel included if you're not thinking of it in a diverse perspective, right? So, so I,
Right. So I
yeah.
think a lot of times when companies do or talk about diversity, what they're talking about, their idea of diversity is diverse bodies
Mm,
with diverse thoughts, but they don't want those bodies and thoughts to be othered. And what I mean by that is, you and I are diverse in that we're different races. You and I are diverse in that we're different genders. And you and I are diverse, and we may have different thought process, but as long as that thought brings us to the same point, then companies are okay with that.
mm,
It's being okay with the otherness of my thoughts. So if my thoughts don't bring us to that same point, then companies go, well, we don't want that kind of diversity. That's a bit too other
mm.
for us. So a lot of companies do diversity, and they will say all the buzzwords. But when you come to making people or people being othered, that's where companies fall down. They don't want others. They want conformity with the little razzle dazzle of diversity in race, a little razzle dazzle in diversity of sexuality, maybe language or culture. But when somebody comes into your space that's other than you, how do you handle that? And a lot of companies don't know how to deal with the otherness of people while pretending that they do.
Right. So they're so focused on diversity, and then they think that the inclusion piece it's kind of like America is the melting pot versus mixing bowl, or the argument that
Yes.
people used to always say, "I don't see color," and think that that's noble, not seeing color, right? So, so is that kind of getting to the same point, that we think it's about bringing
Yeah.
diverse people in, and
Yeah.
then
It,
creating.
it's, I don't see color. I don't see color. Race doesn't matter to me, which is such a bag of bull. And I wish people would just own that. Like, race matters to me. And I'm not afraid to say that, in the same way that race matters to anybody of a different race. And it doesn't take anything away from me. It doesn't make me an awful person. It just says, I, being black is important to me. Now, for somebody white, they may say, well, being white isn't important to me. But if you think about where you live, where you grow up, where you worship, the movies you like, the movie stars you like, right? The music you listen to. all of that indicates to you that white is important to you. You're just not saying it, you're living it.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't like people saying that race is important to me. It's okay for it to be important to you because your life will tell me whether or not it's important to you. So when I ask, particularly white people, where do you live? What is your neighborhood makeup? Well, I'm in the suburb. Okay, is that majority white? Well, yeah. Then race is important to you. Where do you worship? Where do you go to church? What does that makeup look like? Is it a white church? Well, yeah. Race is important to you. Who are your friends? What do your friends look like? Are your friends majority white? Well, that's just because where I live and where I work, again, race is important to you. So even though you're not verbally saying it, your life tells me it is important to you. So when
Right.
people say that, I always challenge them. Tell me about your life, and I'll tell you if race is important to you. And if your life demonstrates for me that everybody around you looks like you, race is important to you.
It's so fascinating. I recently did a it was actually a student of mine that brought in this activity. It's called the identity tree. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it has you map out on a tree. It has you map out all of the different aspects of what makes you who you are, right? So your race, your gender, your sexuality, all of these different things. And then after you do all of that, it then asks you to identify how many times a day or how many times a week do you think about that aspect of yourself. And so for me, thinking
Mm-hmm.
about my whiteness, thinking about my maleness, like those things don't come up so often. I don't think about those things so often. Maybe my whiteness more because I am in this IO psychology space and so through my work I think about it. But but certainly being male, I don't think about that a ton. But being Jewish, I think about that a lot because I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
majority in that case, right? Being a white male is
Right.
like that's almost the default, right? And so I don't think about it.
Right.
It's when you're not part of the majority that it's much more salient. That I think.
That's absolutely right. When I was growing up in the Bahamas, I never ever thought about my race. Ever. In fact, I didn't even understand what race was when I got to America. Why? Because now I am in the minority and I'm not the majority. So now I am thinking about something that I didn't have to think about previously. It's like dropping white people that are used to being the majority in spaces at work, in their lives, in their neighborhoods, and dropping them into a predominantly black or brown space. I guarantee you they will start thinking and being very aware of their whiteness.
Right.
So if you can go into black spaces, brown spaces, and all of a sudden you are very aware.
Oh no. Okay, so Tammy was having a little bit of connection problems, so I'm sure she'll be right back. We have plan B, plan C, so she will log back in. But I love what she was just saying about that. This is so much of a problem of tokenism when you are the one, or one of very few um, black people in the office or women in the office. It's incredibly difficult not to look at things through that lens. I don't think about my maleness until I'm in a room full of females and one of the only males. Oh, here she is. You're back. And a little choppy. Okay, we're going to wait for your internet to catch.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go. No
Oh
problem. I was
goodness.
telling them that we kind of saw that this might happen, and that we had a backup plan. So I was talking about tokenism in terms of what you were just talking about, and how it's very difficult to think about,
Can you
to
hear me?
not look at things through the lens of your own blackness when you're one of the only black people in the office, or your maleness if you're in an office that's all only female, right? And we have a couple questions and comments.
Right.
Okay.
In the workplace, especially notice it because a lot of times we are one of men, they don't see their blackness is just insane.
Right. Okay. So it's. I think there's a bit of a delay um,
Yeah.
between us, but this is
Yeah.
this comment says it sounds like Dr. Trillo is shedding light on a
You can
what I.
always
Yep.
it's like following the breadcrumbs for people who do the
All right, Tammy. Maybe if you log back out one more time and log back in, it might knock out this problem.
yeah.
And I told Tammy that I would do a song and dance for all of you in the meantime, so that we can to keep you entertained. But a lot of you have added some really excellent comments and questions, so I wanted to run through those real quick when while we're waiting for Tammy. And here she is. So hi Tammy. So exactly.
Hi.
Hey, if race doesn't matter to you, then how can you ensure that others are having their voices heard and needs met within the company? That policies and environmental are not causing inequality and harm. I think that's such a great point. It brings it to empathy. If I am not hyper aware or I am barely aware of what roles race plays in my life, then it's very difficult for me to sort of understand what that means for you and what role it plays in your life. So, are there ways to get
Yeah.
people to move outside of that context and be able to empathize?
I think one of the ways that people have to move out of that context and empathize is what I said earlier. If you find yourself saying race doesn't matter to me, if you find yourself saying this is not important to me, I want you to take inventory of your life. Who is in your life? Who is around you? What does your friend looks like? What does your neighborhood look like? What is your social gatherings look like? When you invite people, what do they look like? Because your life is telling the story of whether or not that is important to you. And then once you realize, okay, I'm saying it's not important to me, but I've made my life pretty white or pretty brown or pretty Jewish or pretty gay or pretty straight. If I've taken care, consciously or unconsciously, to create that kind of life for myself, then maybe I have a blind spot to this thing. And then once you realize you have a blind spot to the thing, and we all have, like, I am not gay, right? So as much as I try to be empathetic to the gay community, I still have blind spots within that community. And so I am humble enough to understand that I may say something, do something that may be wrong, that may be offensive, that may not have been my intent. And that if somebody from that community corrects me, that my response is not defensiveness because I am not gay. So I'm not having that experience. I'm not living that experience. I am humble enough to say that. And that if somebody corrects me from that community, is to say thank you, sit with that, and then go do and be better.
Huh. That is beautifully said. Um, when when I go through and see your posts come up, like I said in the intro, sometimes it leaves me like, no, that's not true, and it can even leave me, not typically me, but it could leave me and others like me or that with similar life experiences feeling angry or defensive or feeling attacked. So you describe yourself as kind, but I feel attacked when I see your content. So how could you help us sort of explore how those two things live together?
So to me, kindness is honesty.
Hmm.
You are practicing kindness when you're honest with somebody. It is unkind to lie to anybody directly or by omission because lying to you gives you the impression that you are doing something right. And if I lie to you and you go out into the world and you encounter people who are not me, and you do that very same thing, you're going to have a different experience with people who are not me. So to me, kindness is being honest. And I think people confuse kindness, and I wrote a post about this and kind of got a bit of flack. People confuse kindness with nice.
Hmm.
Nice is fake. It's not real. It's not genuine, and it doesn't serve anybody but the person who doesn't want to be uncomfortable with telling you the truth. So what I will do is be nice, and I won't correct you. I'll be nice and say, well, I'm not really offended by that. That doesn't really bother me. Why? Because I don't want to be uncomfortable, and I don't want you to be hurt by my honesty. But to be kind to somebody is to be honest with them. And so that's why I say I am kind. I'm not nice. I'm not going to be inauthentic with you. I'm not going to be fake with you. I'm never going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'm okay if me telling you the truth upsets you. I will absolutely give you space to process that, and then we can come back and have a conversation. So I'm not unkind in that this is my truth. You're going to hear it. You need to hear it right now, and we need to resolve this right now. No, I understand some truth takes some time for people to sit with and to process, and then we can come back. But I'm going to be kind and be honest with you and tell you the truth.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love that concept. So I talk about the difference between kind and nice a lot. I have a talk that's called "Building a Kinder Kind of Workplace," and that's kind of that always throws people off though when I say stop being nice. And as somebody who is sort of a recovering agreeable person, it's when I am being very agreeable and nice, it is a selfish pursuit, right? I want you to like me. I want to keep the peace, and saying the hard thing. I surround myself with people. I say often, not typically in public like this, maybe, but I say my wife is the kindest person I know, but she's not nice at all. But it's true. And when you think about teachers, elementary school teachers that had an impact on you, nurses when you or a loved one were in the hospital for multiple days, the ones that impact you are the ones that tell you the hard truth, right? They're the ones that really the kind ones, and they're not typically the nice, fluffy ones, right? But I guess so. When you get that emotional reaction from people, is that is that the intention? Is it a byproduct? If I feel emotional or emotionally connected to a post of yours, what should I be reading into myself about that? What does that tell me?
What that tells you, or what it should tell you, is this is an area I need to visit. I need to visit this, and I need to sit with it because there's something that's triggering me in this area. What is that? I say to people, investigate that feeling. But the problem is, whenever we get uncomfortable, we don't want to investigate that feeling. And what I hope people will do is, if you read a post of mine that makes you uncomfortable, investigate the feeling. Why am I feeling uncomfortable by what some stranger essentially on the internet is saying? Why does this impact me in that way? Why am I feeling this? Investigate and interrogate that feeling. And if you sit with it long enough, you will realize I am very careful not to trauma dump on other people's posts. So if something hits me, instead of me going into my trauma and dumping it on you, I will sit with that and I go, okay, this is me. This is for me to work out. And this is not for David. So I need to sit and work this out. And this is not the time to trauma dump on his post. And sometimes I will write it out, but never post and hit delete, right? Because I want to get that feeling off of me. But then I will come back to that and say, okay, you wrote that. You got it out. You didn't hit post. You got it out of your body. Now let's really deal with why you felt you need to get that out of your body. What is going on with you?
Mm, yeah, yeah. You have to look internally because it's something in here, and maybe that emotional
Yeah.
response will help me connect with it rationally
Yes.
once I kind of get over that hump.
Once
As long
that,
as I'm being
yeah,
honest with
yeah.
myself
Once
and
that feeling
vulnerable.
goes, yeah,
Yeah.
once that feeling goes, you can actually sit with yourself and you can go, David, now what is that really about? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the initial feeling is gone. Now, what was that about? Why did that trigger you? Why did that really? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because here's the thing, I always say the biggest lie we tell ourselves is the lie we tell ourselves about ourselves. So when you've been lying to yourself about who you are, and my post challenges that lie, you're going to be upset. So I always say, why are you really upset? Am I challenging the lie that you've been telling yourself about who you are? So, what you've told yourself is, I'm absolutely not racist. I absolutely see everybody the way they are. I am absolutely not homophobic. I care about everybody. I am absolutely not ageist. I am absolutely not ableist. You've told yourself all these beautiful stories about yourself. That's why you're having all these feelings and emotions. And it's like, that's good. I personally enjoy content on LinkedIn. I enjoy content on social media that actually makes me stop and interrogate myself. Because in your everyday life, when are you ever in a position to do that for yourself? Almost never, right? Because you're just living. You're unconsciously living. You're doing your thing. You're taking care of your family, your kids. You're dropping off to school. You're going to work. You're just unconsciously living. So you never really have opportunities to interrogate yourself. So when content comes up that makes you go in and interrogate your own belief system, that's the kindness of a stranger, is what I would like to say. It's the
Right.
kindness of a stranger to share their experience with me that makes me go inward.
Right. Um, this is from Erica. Such a valid point, Tammy. Trauma dumping is real. Our emotional triggers are many times alerting us to wounds that we need to heal. Well said. So,
Absolutely.
so I want to ask you about. I guess I've got you here being kind and giving us the real scoop. I had a conversation recently. We were talking about the 2018 Starbucks incident, right? Where there were two black
Mm-hmm.
men in Starbucks and they didn't order a drink, and then they were asked to leave, and right away the police were then called and they ended up getting arrested. It was a huge thing. Starbucks releases a statement. The first one wasn't so great, but then they released a stronger statement, and then they shut down all of their stores for bias training, right? Now, here's the question. When I speak about this, especially with black individuals, there's sort of like this skepticism, very thick skepticism. It's like when George Floyd was murdered, and every organization from small to large put out statements and started taking action and adding diversity, everything, right? There was so much skepticism and blowback on companies that did that, but also if you didn't say anything, there was blowback. So from the leadership perspective within these organizations, it's almost like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And from an individual's perspective, it's very difficult to know, how do I play the role of ally without patronizing or coming across that this is a PR move or whatnot. That it's not about me. Can you speak to that,
You
because I
tell the
think it
truth.
really freezes people up.
Well, I think organizations tell the truth. So when these big incident happens, the truth is we have not done a good job about diversity. We have not done not a good job about honest, because whether you're black or back. And so when George Floyd was happening and we would have companies reach out to us, the first, not your lived values. If these are not values you live, don't post anything, because you haven't demonstrated in your business practices, you haven't demonstrated in your everyday business dealings that you care about this. So to now pretend that because George Floyd got killed, you care, don't do that, because that's honest. The honesty is we don't have a statement because the truth is we've never lived this. This is not something we really do. Now, what you can do is you can go inward within your company. You can have town halls within your company and have those town halls with the people that work for you. Why do you care about people who do not work for you, what they think about your company? Think about your company.
Oh, Tammy, you're breaking up again.
About literally those values and don't on it. They don't want that. That's murder suit. Is that better?
I think you're still frozen. Oh, okay. So we're gonna give Tammy another shot to get back in, but I promise you all, I'm going to beg Tammy to come back another time where we don't have the connection issues, because these topics are so important to discuss, and she brings such a honest perspective to them. But I'd like to hear from you in the chat. What if you are white, like, is there discomfort in entering the conversation because you don't know where your place is? I know that I have started LinkedIn posts in the past and not pressed enter because I put them through a filter of, well, does this seem insensitive? Is it my place to say this, etc.? What does that filter look like for you? Is there one? And do you think that holds back the conversation? Hey, Tammy, so I was telling them that we would give you another shot, but that I was going to beg you to come back another time very soon so that we could do this without the connection issues because you have so much more to say. But while you were gone, I also asked them if there's any people in the audience who are maybe white, and I was asking them how much they hold back from entering the conversation, because they're sort of filtering themselves, and does that hurt the conversation or moving things forward because you don't know what the right thing to say is. So we have a response here. Personally, I'd rather make an honest mistake discussing something than choosing to ignore it altogether. And I think that's the brave move, isn't it?
And it is. That's the best move because it creates opportunity for you to learn from the person by whom. Listen, we all make mistakes. Even me as an expert have made mistakes sometimes in dealing with employees and issues. I'm sure in your line of work have made mistakes. Like, that's a human condition to make mistakes. And I think if we are afraid of making mistakes, then we take no action. And I think the conversation of diversity is too big to be inactive. Like, we all have to be actively engaged in breaking down our own biases, because we all have them, right? And we have them about different things and for different reasons, but we all have them. And I think everybody has to be actively engaged in dismantling and breaking down those biases. So make the mistake. And hopefully the person on the other side of that mistake offers you grace. Mm-hmm. I always do. I always offer people grace to have mistakes, you know, kind of the work that I do. But I would encourage people, whatever demographic, and listen, I talk about Black fatigue, especially around the issue of race. Like, Black people are fatigued about this issue because it's been happening for so long. So I understand Black people saying, I just don't have the grace for it. I don't have the time for it. I can't do it anymore. Especially if you've been in workplaces and work environments where every day it's something for you. So some white person having a mistake with you, you may not give great Black person.
Okay, so Tammy fell off again. But I love some of these comments. Here's my filter. If I'm centering me and if I'm using white woman tears or my own emotions to stress about racism, then it's a sign I need to not post that thought. I try to use the golden rule as the filter. These are really great, very great, really great thoughts, and I don't know. So I'm not sure if Tammy is going to be able to log back in or not. But we are going to reschedule this. I appreciate all of you being here. And I also want to encourage all of you to, right here, this guy right here, connect with Tammy. If you're not already connected with Tammy on LinkedIn, make sure to do that. You can either search for her on LinkedIn or you could just hover right over this QR code, and that will take you to her LinkedIn page. Definitely connect with her and read her posts. And I hope they make you angry or frustrated or question your reality. And if they do, I think that's incredibly healthy, and that you should embrace that and engage. And I think Tammy would say, that if you don't feel super comfortable engaging in public, have a private conversation with her. Tammy, we were just saying that I didn't know if you were going to end up coming back or not this time, but I was encouraging them to get in touch with you and connect with you, and to and that I hope that some of your posts make them angry, make them think, make them feel vulnerable,
I
and
don't
that
know
they
if you
should.
can hear me, David. I am
Yes.
literally best, so I apologize.
No problem. No problem. So we are definitely going to have you come back, but everyone on here needs to make sure to connect with Tammy. And in 2 weeks from now, hopefully we can squeeze Tammy in before then and do a water cooler Wednesday, not on Wednesday, a special edition, or actually maybe next Wednesday. So stay tuned. But in 2 weeks from now, I'm really excited to host Tate Linden, who all of this stuff is connected. And Tate has his own organizational integrity model, where he helps organizations measure the levels of integrity within their organization. This is one that you don't want to miss. There's going to be some real solid takeaways, tactics, strategies for you to bring back to your organization, to make sure that your organization is existing with integrity. And of course, it's harder and harder to find, select, retain great people. And I think that some of the tools that you'll pick up here will be extremely important in that regard. And we've got a comment. A diverse company has better returns than a not diverse company. Absolutely. And the interesting thing about the research on this that I've seen is that diversity has a ton of value to it for the organization, like bottom line value, um, as long as the diversity is managed. In other words, if you hire people for diversity, but you're not focused on inclusion, that's going to have the opposite result. You'll find more non-productive conflict within your organization, and people won't feel like they have a voice. So diversity is the first step, but then you need the inclusion, and you need people to feel like there's equity and that they belong in order to take it all the way home. So to make the business case for diversity, I think we need to include inclusion in there absolutely 100% of the time. Hi, David. Thanks for the conversation. I just accepted your invite to your newsletter about a kinder workplace. Best regards. Oh, thank you so much for that. We will be in touch, and I will make sure to post and have, and Tammy will post, and we'll make sure that word gets out when this has been rescheduled. And I probably won't make Tammy go through the 6 and 60 again. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time.